Let's talk about fair housing. How do you perceive the Trump administration might go after just the concept of fair housing? What has the Civil Rights Division been doing in terms of housing?
Yeah, I mean, so obviously Trump is a person who personally has a lot of experience with fair housing as a defendant in a lawsuit brought by the Justice Department in the Nixon administration. Saying that he had discriminated in apartments that he ran against black applicants for tenancy. So, and I don't think he thinks of it as a particularly fond experience.
They had to
So I think
issue a
housing,
second consent decree, didn't they, or something? Didn't he?
yeah,
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, so he entered into a consent decree and then violated the consent decree, and they had to bring another suit essentially, or another action to enforce that consent decree. And yeah, I mean, this is, and the facts in the case were pretty egregious, right? Where the folks who took tenancy applications had to write the letter C on applications to indicate that the person was black, C for colored. This is, in the 1970s. We have every reason to believe that the idea of aggressive fair housing enforcement is not something the Trump administration is going to be that in favor of. The Obama administration took a number of steps to try to bring systemic cases. So there are all these individual cases of fair housing violations that pretty much every Justice Department will bring. So if there's one applicant for a lease who gets turned down, and the evidence indicates it's because of their race, the Justice Department's going to bring that case. The real shift in the Obama administration was to try to do this on a wholesale rather than a retail level, to try to bring big systemic cases, to try to take action like the rule that the Department of Housing and Urban Development issued, that required cities to engage in actions affirmatively furthering fair housing and states to engage in actions affirmatively furthering fair housing, which is a requirement of the law that had really fallen into disuse. Now, both Trump and his nominee for Secretary of HUD have criticized this. The nominee, Ben Carson, has said it's social engineering to try to force people to move, force suburbs to take people who they don't want to take. I think you can see a lot of that getting shut down. A lot of the work in the early Obama administration dealt with lending discrimination, particularly arising out of the foreclosure crisis. We found that in a lot of the places hardest hit by foreclosures, banks were giving less favorable loan terms to minority borrowers, and whether that was intentional discrimination or whether that was application of a formula that didn't actually serve bottom line interests but did a good job of really sticking it to minority borrowers. We don't know, but what we do know is that meant that blacks and Hispanics were especially hard hit by the foreclosure crisis in a lot of places. I have every reason to believe that work is just done under a Trump administration. And, that was, we're talking about multi-million dollar settlements for people who were injured by bank discrimination in the foreclosure crisis. So I think that's all going to be a very big change in the housing area.
Hey, it's Sam Seder. Why don't you subscribe to this channel? You can do so right over here. Over. Subscribe.